or discussions we have. We're now joined Mark Zeigler, San Diego Union-Tribune, covers San Diego State, Aztecs basketball, and more. And he joins us on 365 Sports. Mark, thanks for your time. I think, had a conversation about 4 hours ago or so on the story that Pete Thamel had and many others on San Diego State and the Mountain West. Has anything changed since you and I spoke about maybe the communication wasn't very good?
Yeah, a few things have changed. It's I don't want to say it's a nothing story, but it's not really what it seems on the surface. So what happened is San Diego State sent a letter to the Mountain West, and my understanding is that the intention was, look, we've got a 1 year out deadline to exit the conference. So if they want to leave for 24-25 and join the Pac-12 or Big 12, you have to give a year's notice, and the year's notice deadline is June 30th. And if you do it after June 30th, you can still leave, but the exit fee doubles to $34 million, which is a prohibitive amount for a school like San Diego State. So they send a letter and say, yeah, we're our intention is to leave, but we just want to investigate options and maybe get an extension to this deadline or a payment plan, or maybe reducing the exit fee if we leave after the deadline. And that was interpreted by the league as, hey, you're out, okay. And they sent a letter back saying, no, we accept the letter and you're out, and we're going to initiate separation procedures. And they wrote a letter back saying, no, we're not out. We're just asking these questions so that if we do get an invitation, we'll be more informed and we don't have to do it in the 11th hour. And I just don't know if it was really well executed on San Diego State's part. But that's kind of where it lies right now. They're not leaving the conference right now. They have nowhere to go. So I'm not sure why they would leave.
Mark, you just kind of said it there. They have nowhere to go. To your best knowledge, what is the situation now as far as them eyeing a potential spot in the Pac-12 or vice versa? I know there doesn't seem to be, really any realistic smoke with the Big 12, but I mean, the Pac-12 seems like it almost seems like it would be a layup. But what's the holdup there as far as your understanding goes, and why wouldn't they, instead of just floating the idea today, be saying, hey, we are planning on leaving?
I think it's a timing thing. I mean, all these things there's a sequence of events that has to happen. And the first one is the Pac-12 has to get a new media rights deal, and then they get a grant of rights signed by everybody in the league, and then they decide if they want to expand. Well, none of those things have happened. I mean, they've had since, almost, it's going on a year now. We're almost at the year anniversary when USC and UCLA, the news first broke that they were going to leave. And the Pac-12 can't get a TV deal done. And no one's going to sign a grant of rights and say we're staying in your league without a TV deal. And I think the fear is, they could technically extend an invitation to San Diego State, but are you accepting that if you don't know who's going to be in your league? Mm-hmm. If there's going to even be a league, because if Colorado and Arizona have many reported, leave for the Big 12, then maybe an Arizona State and Utah goes, we got to get out of here because this is falling apart quickly, and they leave. And then Oregon and Washington just go to the Big Ten and say, we're at your mercy. We'll take whatever deal you give us. We'll come in for a quarter share. We don't care. We got to get out. And all of a sudden you're left with Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State. I mean, that's no league to go to. So I think that's the problem. They got to wait for all these things to happen, then get an invitation, and then go. And it's not going to happen by June 30th, I don't think.
Mark, how much of this is on the radar in San Diego?
It's on the radar. People talk about it all the time. I mean, I understand the sports market here. It's the most unique sports town. I've lived here 30 years. It's the most unique sports town in America in the sense that we're a big city, but we haven't won anything. And unless you count indoor soccer, we won a lot of those. But the Padres have never won. The Chargers never won when they were here. The Rockets were here, never won. I just put a stat up. In Vegas, just won a title with the Golden Knights, right? So they've had 9 total years of Big Four professional league teams, between 3 of the Raiders and 6 of the Golden Knights. So in 9 years, they have 1 title. San Diego has had 117 total years and 0 titles. And so huge inferiority complex here. And a lot of the buzz around this move to a power conference is just feeding off that inferiority complex and wanting to be somebody and wanting to have that recognition that, look, we're a big city and we're into our sports and we have a big time college team here and we want to be recognized and we don't want to be in the Mountain West, which we kind of consider the backwater of college sports. And it's not really the backwater, but they kind of look at it that way. And so I think that's what a lot of this is. And that's why people, to answer your question, yeah, it's a big deal here. And they just want to be somewhere. And I just, the waiting is killing them.
From your vantage point, being able to look at it from an unbiased point of view, just hearing you kind of describe the situation there, do you feel like it's a bit of a sleeping giant? Do you feel like there is a lot of potential there if they were to make this step up? Does this radically change things in your mind for San Diego State and potentially the Pac-12?
It could. I mean, the infusion of money is the one thing they haven't had in the program, and they've done an incredible job with what they have. But you got to understand, the way an athletic department is constructed in a group of 5 or mid-major conference versus in a power conference are completely different. So San Diego State relies on student fees, what they call institutional dollars, which is basically our tax dollars coming straight from the state, and donations. And that's like 73% of their budget. In a power conference school, most of them don't rely on any student fees. I mean, San Diego State, they're steep. They're in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars students pay for intercollegiate athletics. And they don't get very much institutional support. In some cases, none. They just rely on their television contract. So there's when you ask about, is there a sleeping giant? Yeah, it's a big city. They have a nice new football stadium. The basketball program obviously is, as they proved this year, and people have known here for the last 10 years, has been rolling and is as good as any power conference program in the country. But, they're going to have to get a lot more dollars to make that transition to what a power conference athletic department looks like. And they're going to have to wean themselves off those student fees. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that. And so there's going to be some growing pains if they do get into a power conference. And the other problem is that even though it's a big city, they don't have any NIL. And the basketball team already is struggling, even though they just played the national championship game. They're struggling to get players. The football team's really struggling, and we'll see what happens this year with this season. But that's something that's going to have to change. It's the new climate of college sports, and that's something that they have to catch up on as well.
It's obvious that if, in fact, it was to work out, if the Pac-12 could also figure out their future, that's where San Diego State, if they could go somewhere, that would be the right choice and would be the choice. But if, in fact, there is still more fly in the ointment, do you see any interest at all in San Diego State wanting to come east? If, in fact, the Big 12 was to ever increase a little bit more, who knows what the future is with that?
Well, 8-10 years ago, they were going to leave the Mountain West to go to the Big East in football and play basically an East Coast league. And so the answer to your question is yes. They'll follow the money. They need money. I mean, the current model really isn't sustainable. It's that many student fees, that much institutional support, that many donations. I mean, they're growing at such a rate, they need more television dollars. And the Mountain West went from $1.5 million a year to about $5.5 to $6 million a year per school. So it's improved, but it's still not what they feel like they need. And so they'll go wherever they can get the money. And obviously the Big 12 is not an ideal fit from a logistical, even a sort of philosophical, and from what they view as an academic standpoint. San Diego State is a growing institution. They get like 100,000 applications a year. They're trying to get AAU status academically and trying to become an R1 research institution. They've just expanded their campus as part of the project to build a new football stadium into this Mission Valley property. That's only 3 stops on a trolley line from their main campus, which is really landlocked. They can't go anywhere, and they have 35,000 students up there. They're trying to expand to 50 and make it the marquee California State University, sort of the flagship school. And so, I don't know that the Big 12 fits all that. And then just logistically, it's a nightmare. I mean, you can send softball teams to Morgantown, West Virginia. Come on. And so I think they're using the Big 12 more as leverage, and I think the Big 12 is using them as leverage to try to get Pac-12 teams to jump. But I think that the natural fit is the Pac-12. But again, a lot of dominoes have to fall before that happens, and with this deadline looming in 2 weeks. I don't see how all that comes together in such a short period of time.
So, Mark, as you said kind of at the beginning, in terms of just this actually changing things, this isn't a major story, but it could potentially, obviously, change as we move forward. So would you describe the, I guess, near future as a holding pattern for the Aztecs? Is there an invite that they're just waiting to accept? Like, how do you kind of view just the current position? Is it all just a waiting game surrounding this TV deal, or is there maybe some more parts to this?
Yeah, no, that's all pretty much it is. And they're unfortunately in the situation where they're just sitting on the sideline. I mean, I describe it as them just standing on the sideline waving their pennant. And they're not in control of this narrative at all. It's the Pac-12, it's the TV networks, and it's the other Pac-12 schools, and making a decision on what they want to do. They're going to go where the wind blows them, and they just have to wait for the wind to pick up. I mean, right now, there's nothing happening. I asked their athletic director, who did not want to talk about the letters, the existence of the letters, the content of the letters, and all that. But I asked him, I said, "Are you any closer today than you were, a week ago, to being in a power conference?" And he said, "No, I can't say that." So nothing's really changed. They're just waiting for this stuff to happen, and but they're going to it's going to be an anxious 2 weeks, because what happens if you get to June 30th? And they've already telegraphed this. I wrote a story last week saying this deadline's coming, and the president of the university admitting it's going to be really tight. What do you do if it's 9 p.m. on June 30th? I mean, do you just jump and say we're leaving and hope that you get an invitation, and maybe you don't, and now you're screwed, or do you wait and try to find some donor to give you the extra $17 million in the doubled expansion fee? That's a tough question to answer.
Yes, it's fascinating stuff. And I guess, is everything cool now between them and the Mountain West? Is there now some things to figure out in that regard? How do you think that they play this after just kind of obviously the I guess miscommunication, or whatever you would describe it as? Are they on good footing, or how do they work together moving forward?
Well, you bring up a really good point, because as far as I know, the Mountain West wrote back and said, "Okay, you're out. We accept it." And the university said, no, we're not out. We're just asking to answer these questions. So the Mountain West board, minus the San Diego State president, is going to have to meet, and I understand that they will, and kind of sort this out. But, I don't think they can play hardball and say, okay, you're definitely out, and push them out and demand an exit fee. I mean, that might go to the lawyers. But I don't think they're going to budge much, and I don't know why they should. The problem that they have is this, if San Diego State leaves, that's their marquee program. Fox and CBS, which have the rights to Mountain West television, they have in their contract the ability, they can't just end the contract, but they have the ability to renegotiate the fee. And they're going to want a lot less, right? Because you just lost a team that just played the national championship game in basketball and has been pretty good in football, and is in your biggest market. And so that's going to hurt the rest of the conference. And they're looking at it like going, man, we're in a bad climate for negotiating media rights. We could take a big hit in our contract. We better get all the money we can now to help us to become whole. And so I don't see them really, showing any leniency towards San Diego State, either with an extension or with reduced fees. I just think they're going to take a hard line and say, you leave, you don't, you don't.
Well, somebody in the chat room said this, and this is not it's sarcastic, but it's like you have a girlfriend, but you want to date another girl, but you're asking your current girlfriend, is it okay? And I'll be back. I may not
leave you. I just haven't decided.
But it's okay if I take her on a date, that kind of thing.
Well, that's kind of what's going on right now. And again, it wasn't really well executed. I think on San Diego State's part, or maybe the Mountain West read. I have not seen the letters, and nobody has, other than those presidents. But I'd like to see the letters to see what the actual language was. But one person told me who has seen the letters said you could read it both ways. In all fairness.
Sure.
And so this is, if you're the Mountain West, you're expecting them to leave, and you get this letter and you're like, okay, they're leaving and they want to negotiate an extension. But, and if you're San Diego State, why would you leave now when you can wait 2 weeks? So it's a weird situation that we're in. And, the thing leaked out, from one of the presidents, I believe, in another school, and here we are.
Last thing, and thanks again for your time. I know it's been a busy afternoon. So the Mountain West, San Diego State's a part of it. We know who's a part of it. Let's say, and you know the conference well, that San Diego State does leave. Is there anybody that conference has ever looked at in general, in addition, or with other programs that they would be interested in?
They have, and they looked a few years ago during the latest, the previous round of conference expansion. They looked, and they had a couple schools that were interested, and they ranged. A lot of them were, New Mexico State, I think, is one of them that always has wanted to get in. But after what happened with the basketball program, I think they're probably going to be off the table. They've looked in Texas. I think they've been interested in maybe trying to get in the Texas market with, UT San Antonio type situation. And then they've also looked into Conference USA and seen if, whether it's a Memphis or whoever, somewhere in that realm, and expanding that way. But I'm not sure they do anything if they just lost San Diego State, because remember they have 11 members in basketball and 12 in football, because Hawaii plays football but not basketball. They play in the Big West and their other sports. If they went down to 10 and 11, the reason they had to get 12 before was to have a conference championship. That was the NCAA rule. That rule has since been rescinded. They don't need 12. So there's no real reason to add anybody unless they add TV value. And I don't see anybody, maybe someone in Texas, adding that value. So I would be surprised if they added anybody. Now, if they lost San Diego State and say UNLV and a Boise, say the Pac-12 needed 2 or 3 teams, then yes. Then I think they got to go raid somebody. I'm not sure who, but they needed to grow a little bit. But I think right now they just stand pat. And
it's so interesting because UTSA is joining the American Conference this year, as are, again, the American, the Conference USA. It's a constant, it's like a washing machine with just clothes, or dryer with clothes flying left and right. Hey,
it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, Mark, great stuff, man. We really appreciate it. Loved it when we had you on during the basketball run that they made, which was dramatic and amazing. Thanks for your time, and maybe something by June 30th, or yet just another couple of weeks go by and nothing. We'll see. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you guys.
Mark Zeigler covers San Diego State. Great segment, great insight from him.
Yeah, really good.